Coming up on today's episode of the DLLS Mavs Podcast, what is Jason Kidd's role on this team? Plus, we'll play a little Mavericks buy or sell ahead of the NBA trade deadline. All that and more coming up next on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. Here we go. Hey, what's up, DLLS Mavs Nation? It's your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato, Mavericks analyst Bobby Carello. We are DLLS Mavs, your favorite guys covering your favorite team every single day. Really appreciate you joining us here on DLLS Sports. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel while you're here. And you can do the same for our podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. What exactly is Jason Kidd's role on this team? Plus a little Mavericks buy or sell ahead of the NBA trade deadline. Plus Bobby's breakdown today as we give you the lay of the land when it comes to the Mavericks, what they have available to trade as we look forward to the coming trade deadline on February the 6th. We appreciate you joining us here on this Tuesday afternoon. The Mavericks get back on the floor tomorrow when they welcome in Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Our pregame show will begin at 5:45 p.m. tomorrow. So mark your calendars, boys and girls, as the Mavericks got an early tip-off at 6:30 p.m. at the American Airlines Center. Gentlemen,
watch along.
Oh, that's right. That's going to be our watch-along as well. Thank you for the gentle reminder. We'll have a special guest as well for our watch-along, a certain particular wide receiver, former wide receiver from the DLLS Cowboys podcast will be joining us.
Roy Williams.
Not quite.
Anquan Bolden.
Never been a
Never
Cowboy.
played for the Cowboys.
Oh, you're right. Who am I thinking of?
Jesse Holly is who you're thinking
it
of. Jesse Holly is going to be joining us
reality
for
show.
our Mavericks watch-along tomorrow.
Barry Glenn?
He no longer is with us on Earth.
Oh.
Is that so?
That's
that is
really sad.
That is unfortunately so.
Okay, well, let's stop playing this game.
Yeah, you might
now
well
I'm
stop
sad.
playing the game right about
Except
now.
in a big bear trap.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little Mavericks basketball, and we'll start with what our first topic is for today, and we will go with what exactly is Jason Kidd's role on this team. Unfortunately, the Mavericks, who lost yesterday to the Charlotte Hornets, welcome in Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves before they take on the Thunder and the Boston Celtics. But a lot of question, a lot of consternation, a lot of different feelings from Mavericks fans about Jason Kidd and particularly his role on this team, Bobby, as they have struggled without their superstars and Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. What exactly is Jason Kidd's role on this team?
Well, I've spent a lot of time online, and I've interacted with a lot of Mavs fans over the years, just from being on the internet, talking to people in person. Hey, I got friends and family that watch the team that have problems with certain things that happen. And, I think the big through line of Kidd's tenure with the Mavs is that they have sometimes struggled late in games, especially during the 22-23 season, and especially so this season. This was supposed to be, it certainly was last year, one of the best, if not the best, clutch teams in the NBA, because you have two guys, Luka and Kyrie, that can go out and get a bucket anytime they want. Well, over the last month or so, there's been a lot of basketball without one of them, and there's been a lot of basketball, unfortunately, without both of them. And so in their stead, I feel like fans are hoping that the Mavs will be able to, pull out some counters. They'll be able to change their system a little bit, or J-Kidd will be able to find ways to pull strings to put the players that they do have in a position to be successful, to be adaptable, to the awful circumstances that they've been playing under. Now, the things that a tactical coach would do, a tactical-minded coach would do. Jason Kidd was a Hall of Fame point guard. He knows more about basketball than I've ever forgotten. Or he's forgotten more about basketball than I've ever known. Sorry.
That's right.
That is completely said that the wrong way. My bad. J-Kidd is a very smart guy, so far be it from me to say that he is not a tactician, right? He clearly is. He sees and thinks the game at a very high level, but
Every single head coach in the NBA does.
Yes, for sure. But he wasn't hired to be a tactical coach. That's not his job. That's not his job as coach of the Mavs. His job as coach of the Mavs is to get buy-in and get the ear and the trust of Luka and Kyrie.
And can I push back slightly before you continue? I think he was hired to be a defensive tactical coach. And I think that there is a lot of evidence, including this year, that Dallas has outperformed defensively. I think it is wild to me still that the team that went to the conference finals was as good of a defense as they were. I think that last season's defense was obviously a hallmark, and there was a lot of good defensive players on there. But when you're building a defense around Luka and Kyrie, who are competent defenders but are going to be attacked, when they buy in, and when you talk about that buy-in, some of that is the defensive buy-in. I do think that even this season, this is still a top 10 defense in the NBA in terms of points allowed per 100 possessions. And sometimes I really wonder how they're still that. So I do think, I just want to start off by saying, I do think, and I hear this from people around the league, and I've asked hard questions like, what would happen if Sean Sweeney left? Would the defense fall off? And from people who have interacted, who have been on Jason Kidd's staff, the resounding answer I get from people still in the NBA, if not with the Mavericks, who have been on the Mavericks before, is that yes, he would be.
And that is taking nothing away from Sweeney, but Jake is the one that hired him,
100%.
So it's tough from the outside in, and even in Tim, in your case, from the inside, to know exactly what happens, because no one is ever going to tell you the whole truth, right?
Correct.
But the fact remains that, Dwight Powell was their starting big, and Luka and Brunson were their starting backcourt, and they were number 7 in Kidd's first year as coach. That is quite the achievement. Let's not,
shout out to Dorian and Reggie Bullock.
Yeah. Now, I think there are some tactical blunders that have been made over the last few weeks. Let's say, given Klay and ISO at the top of the key has been rough. Letting Spencer cook to excess has been really, really rough. And also defensively too, it feels like some players aren't necessarily pulling their weight, and you would hope for either a little more motivation or focus, or potentially sitting guys down if they're not participating on defense would be happening. But again, Kidd is more of this. This is more of a relating to the stars. This is more of a relating to players. This is more of a creating a cultural sense of buy-in for competing at a high level when the team is healthy. Even role players on the Mavs over the years, outside of guys like maybe JaVale and Grant, that were probably oversold roles on the team, but that's not J Kidd's fault. That's the fault of the GM. They might have had some issues with their playing time or things like that, but every other player on the team is like, J Kidd's great. He tells me what I need to do.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to Kidd, we've seen throughout the course of his near 4 years here that he's willing to push certain buttons when he feels like he needs to. He has been unafraid. We've seen at times to call out his superstar and Luka Doncic, quote-unquote, needing to participate on the defensive end. To your point, even this year when Quentin Grimes wasn't necessarily playing well, he sat him down, and then he was able to find another gear for Quentin Grimes, and he started to play better as well. And so the relationship that he has with not only with with Luka and with Kyrie, once those two fall in line, the rest of the group has to fall in line the same. And if you're going to create the kind of buy-in with the two most important players on your team, that creates essentially other guys as opportunities to have to do the same. And once that does happen, now you're collectively getting guys to buy in. I think Kidd is objectively a top 15 head coach in this league. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Getting them to play above their heads when they went to the conference finals a few years ago was a really good job by him. And when he's able to have, in a lot of ways, this is for every team, honestly, when his guys are healthy, they do well. But the most important part is the relationships that I think he has with him, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why he's the right man for this particular job.
Well, and look, this, I don't think we did the segment purely to just say everything about Jason Kidd is good. For example, you brought up Quentin Grimes. It doesn't really make sense in my basketball brain, which, again, I don't work in the NBA. I'm not pretending that I am on the level of a head coach, but let me tell you, I don't quite understand why Quentin Grimes got sat down for a game, and yet Spencer Dinwiddie consistently, like, there's nothing that's happening from the sidelines in terms of, even though Jason Kidd has said that these ISOs and the ball sticking on the side, late in games on isolation possessions is an issue, there's been nothing really done to change that. Nothing that we've seen. And even if there's something that's being done to change that we don't see behind the scenes, it's not working. That sort of stuff is an issue to me. I think it is very frustrating. It doesn't, it is one part of a coach's job. And I think that's something that, you mentioned this before the show, and I don't think you said it.
I'll get there.
Okay.
I don't know what you're
just the idea that a head coach does not do quite as much as we think.
Oh yeah. I firmly believe that head coach does not do as much as many fans think. Head coaches do a lot. Mm-hmm. They do a whole lot, but they do not do as much as fans think they do, partly because it's impossible for one person to like control everybody. There's not a puppeteer out there with his hands on the strings. Players still make choices. Another part is a lot of players don't care what the coaches tell them. Like, that's kind of an ugly truth. I've heard firsthand, a coach calls a play in a huddle, the huddle breaks, and the star player that's not getting the shot goes to the guy that's going to get the shot and says, yeah, we're not doing that. You're going to give me the ball. Like, that's not an isolated thing. Players kind of do what they want a lot. So, and also too, this is the most important thing. Players are very experienced, and players know like what to do and what not to do. Players know the rules. Players know they have a lot of situational awareness. And so, to say like, well, J-Kid should tell Spencer to stop dribbling the ball so much is to say that unless he did tell him that, Spencer would not just know that he's dribbling too much. Like, it's really weird. It's almost like if you need a coach to say to tell the players to do everything, you're assuming that the players know very little about what they're doing, and that's just simply not the case.
And this is part of the hand he's been dealt. Like, some of this is kind of his hands are tied based on who he has on the floor.
But ultimately, here's the thing. Like, again, everything, the number one priority, right? You have to create like this hierarchy of needs, right? The number one priority that J-Kid has as head coach is getting Luka and Kyrie to buy in, because this team will not be successful unless that's the case. Everything flows up to that, and everything flows down from that. And that's not only to preserve his job, but that's also to ensure the team succeeds. So you might not prioritize your relationship with Quentin Grimes the same way that you would Luka or Kyrie. So you might not care if he gets his feelings hurt, or you might be more willing to say, be harder on him for making a mistake than you would a veteran with a little more cachet.
Who's actually earned the trust of Jason Kidd with the Western Conference Finals run that Spencer Dinwiddie helped him go on.
And I don't think he deserves it anymore, but that's my choice. That's not J-Kid's choice. Or that's whatever. But here's like there's two kind of coaches, right? In closing, you have your more tactically minded coaches. You have your more players coach, or your more cultural coach, your coach that is going to prioritize relationship building, trust, giving players the space. I don't mean culture like hang out and have fun. I mean like the Miami Heat have the Heat culture. I don't think the Mavs have the Heat culture, but the Mavs have a culture where Luka and Kyrie are in charge, and everybody understands that my job is to fall in line beneath them. Mm-hmm. Beneath them, not in line with them, beneath them. It is understood that this is a hierarchy. Now, tactical coaches by nature are going to be a little more controlling. They're going to be a little more, I have these ideas and we're going to implement them. And if you don't do that, I'm going to sit you down, or I'm going to get on your ass. Tactical coaches are guys like Rick Carlisle or Kenny Atkinson, who Rick Carlisle's built a great offense in Indiana. Kenny Atkinson has the Cavs playing championship caliber basketball. Both of them famously fell out with the Mavs' top two players. Luka could not stand Rick, and that's not just from his last season. That's from Luka's first season. Kyrie Irving may or may not have got Kenny Atkinson fired after doing a really good job with the Nets. So let's be real here. Like, if you want the Mavs, if you're a Mavs fan and you're like, they need to prioritize tactics over relationships with Luka and Kyrie, you might as well just kiss Luka and Kyrie goodbye. Like, that's just, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
When it comes to a tactical coach, and I think the most common idea that I see from them, from people talking about, oh, well, this coach should be more tactical. They should scheme up an offensive play. They should run some off-ball screens. I feel like off-ball screens gets brought up the most, right? Dallas is 20th in the league. That's how many, like the total number of off-ball screens run this season. 20th in the league. You know what teams are below them? The Indiana Pacers with Rick Carlisle. The Cleveland Cavaliers with more than 300 fewer. They're 27th in the league. The team last in the league is the Milwaukee Bucks. The Atlanta Hawks, another team with a tactical coach. Everybody says Quinn Snyder is a very tactical coach. Yeah. But he has a point guard who is a pick-and-roll oriented point guard. They have run almost 400 fewer off-ball screens than Dallas. So I guess where I eventually come down on it is that I do think Jason Kidd has not got more out of the sum of the parts of this team over the past 4-ish weeks when Luka and Kyrie have both been absent. I don't think he's got the most out of this team. I think that here and there are a few things that I think he could have done better. And just looking at the overall performance of the team, I think this team's a little bit more talented than some of the games they've blown. But I just don't know what use it is to go get a coach that would be better in this stretch than a coach who would be better when the team's healthy. There's no scenario where, and I guess the idea, if you believe that Jason Kidd should be fired, if you're a fan who believes that, or at least if you're a fan that believes
and he
Jason
will be
Kidd,
someday, let's be honest.
Yeah, if you're a
Coaches
fan that
get hired to get fired.
if you think that he's a coach that hasn't done a good job, and that the conversation should at least be open. I guess the question is, what team would maximize Luka and Kyrie together better? And I suspect that names, if there are names thrown out, that I'm going to disagree with a lot of them, because I just don't think there's a lot of coaches who would do a better job with this fully healthy team to get them to the point of title contention, even if there are absolutely coaches who maybe would do a better job taking this lesser talented group of parts and fitting them together enough that they get some wins in the interim.
Let's take our first break here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. I was about to say post-game show. I was actually about to say it. But let's take our first break here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. When we come back, we'll get to your super chats. Plus, Bob is going to break down what the Mavericks have available to them as we get ready for the February 6th NBA trade deadline. And a little bit later on, play a little Mavericks buy or sell as well. All that and more coming up next year on the DLLS Mavs podcast.
But first, time to talk about Sleeper. Sleeper is the best fantasy league platform out there. I would know I'm on there way too dang much, but you can also
you and Kavanaugh
put your ball knowledge to the test by picking on Sleeper whether your favorite or least favorite players will have more or less on their projected stats each week. Big men needing double-doubles, all of y'all are on my list, all right? I hate every single one of you right now. With Sleeper, the more picks you combine, the more you can win, all the way up to 100 times your money. Sleeper also keeps you in the loop with instant alerts for breaking news and major injuries, and Lord knows there's a lot of those with the Mavs these days, so you can stay ahead of the game and keep track of league updates in real time so you're always informed and ready to outsmart your friends, enemies, and frenemies. If you think you have what it takes, new users can download the Sleeper app and use the code DLLS Mavs to get $55 in free entries when you place a $5 contest. You can apply it to any contest, doesn't have to be your first. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. They're currently operational in over 25 states, including Texas. Check out Sleeper today.
Congratulations to The Ohio State University for being national champions of college football. I told y'all to pick them, but y'all wouldn't listen. Ohio State crushing Notre Dame in the national championship game last night. Now that the college football season is over with, it's time for the East-West Shrine Bowl, the 100th edition of the East-West Shrine Bowl, taking place deep in the heart of Texas on January 30th at AT&T Stadium. Since 1925, the game has benefited Shriners Children's and its mission to provide innovative pediatric specialty care to improve and transform the lives of children. See some of the nation's top college football players play in this head-to-head competition ahead of the NFL draft coming up in April. The East-West Shrine Bowl has served as a starting point for many noteworthy NFL careers, including Tom Brady and Lawrence Taylor as well, including 80 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and more than 200 members of the College Football Hall of Fame as well. Tickets start at just $20 and use code DLLS when purchasing 2 or more tickets to receive 50% off. So visit shrinebowl.com today to buy your tickets for the 100th edition of the East-West Shrine Bowl, taking place at AT&T Stadium on January 30th. As we continue,
Can we shout out Daniel real quick?
I was about to. Yeah, I was about to. We're going to get to our $50 super chat from our guy, Daniel Escobar.
Super chat, Daniel.
Much love to y'all. Much love to you, Daniel, for the $50 super chat. Love the show.
Daniel.
It's awesome.
Danny.
Is that the biggest we've gotten, our show?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Right?
Yeah.
I believe so.
I think
So shout out to Daniel. And yes, I saw your earlier comment as well. I enjoyed the hell out of my night last night at the American Airlines Center at Monday Night Raw. It was a fantastic time. I took my daughter for the first time for her first WWE event. She had a ball. So I appreciate you asking about that as well. It was nice. I almost didn't have a voice coming. You almost had to lead the show. One of you two.
That would have been a nightmare. So I'm glad that
because my voice was not great when I got home last night.
You should go back and watch the first minute of every one of the shows that you missed. You'd be like, oh my God, this is a disaster.
I didn't have to because I was watching them live. So there you go.
Thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate that.
Shout out to you, Daniel, for the super chat. $50, the biggest one here for our DLLS Mavs podcast. Speaking of money, what assets did the Mavericks have as they get ready for the February 6th NBA trade deadline? Nice little graphic right there if you're watching us live there on the DLLS Mavs podcast. Trade deadline February the 6th as the Dallas Mavericks potentially may make a move ahead of the deadline. Bobby Krell's going to break it down for us on what the Mavericks have, what they don't have, and what it could mean as we move toward the deadline.
Yeah, so based on what Marc said yesterday on the postgame show, who knows if the Mavs are even going to be able to make a trade, because they aren't necessarily looking to trade rotation players for upgrades, but they definitely do want to upgrade, but they don't have much to trade other than rotation players. So, it's a pretty difficult puzzle to solve, but the Mavs are going to try, and we all know Nico likes a deal. Every trade deadline, every draft day, they make a move. It's just how it is around here. And honestly, that's been the case in Dallas since before Nico even took over. I mean, the Mavs have always been, big-time dealers around the deadline. So I'm expecting them to do something. And I think it's really important over the next few weeks as you see rumors float around and as you pull up the trade machine and start experimenting with your own ideas and throwing them around on Twitter, in the chat here, on our Discord or wherever, that we all have kind of this idea of the universe in which the Mavs are operating, because there are a ton of possibilities for some teams. For others, there are fewer. And the Mavs, unfortunately, belong in that second group. They have a lot of rules they got to follow. So right off the rip, the Mavs are $526,000 below what we call the first apron. There's two aprons. The second one is the really spooky one, but the first one is kind of rough. The Mavs cannot exceed the first apron by rule. So if they do make a trade, they are allowed to make trades and take back more than within 25% of the salary they send out, but only if that leaves them below the first apron. So they essentially have to trade dollar for dollar. Okay, that is already really tough.
And what pins them to the first apron?
The fact that they did a sign and trade and they accepted a player in a sign and trade.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, it's the choices they made over the summer that for the next year. It's almost like how you got to choose your healthcare in America. You got to choose it early on, and like as soon as you're set on that, you're set for a year. It's not until
what it is.
Dallas can spend more money. If that's what they choose as the right path to building this team, they can absolutely go into the first apron or even the second apron next summer if they want to, depending on the moves they make. But because of the moves they made this summer, they are hard capped, which means they cannot exceed. The specific number is $1,708,132,000.
It's a very specific number.
It is super specific. So they have to stay below that. Okay. So that's the number one rule. In any trade that the Mavs make, they essentially have to take back less money. And there's a whole lot of other teams that are around where they are in terms of their finances too that also can't take back more money than they send out. So already,
usually it could be 25%.
Yeah, but not anymore. Those days are kind of gone.
Not for Dallas.
Not for Dallas right now, and not for a lot of other teams in the league.
Thanks, Adam Silver.
Okay, so what do the Mavs have to work with? And we put them in a nice little graphical format. So I feel like, even though Marc yesterday said that the Mavs don't want to trade Daniel Gafford, he did kind of leave a little wiggle room. They would if they had to, but they don't. They really, really don't want to. But if the right kind of deal comes along and they have to include Gafford to get it done financially, they would maybe consider possibly doing it. I think two other guys that make a decent amount of money that could be dealt, Maxi Kleber, who he and Daniel Gafford are both unrestricted free agents after next season, so they each have one more year left on their deal after this one.
So Maxi would be on an expiring contract going into next season.
Next season, yeah. And then Quentin Grimes, who is on an expiring contract this year and is a restricted free agent, so that if a team like the Mavs just traded for Grimes, any team that trades for Quentin Grimes will have that restricted free agency, exclusive negotiating, the right to match, all that stuff. They will retain that right with Grimes. So those are three guys. I would also add Jaden Hardy and Omax Prosper to that list, although I don't know. We'll see what kind of value they even have. What do the Mavs have in terms of picks that they can offer in trades? Well, they have their own 2025 first rounder, which currently is number 19. They have Philly's second round pick. They actually have the better of Philly and Denver's second round pick, which currently that is Philly by far, and that is the 38th pick. Now, if you've been following the Sixers, you know their pick is protected 1 through 6. So Philly might accidentally start losing a lot of games pretty soon if they can't turn their season around quickly. So that pick could actually become even better. But as it stands, it's the 38th pick.
Doesn't OKC own that pick, by the way?
Who's that?
The
Philly?
Yeah.
If it's not 1 through 6, it goes to OKC.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep. And right now, that would be the number 8 pick in a loaded draft.
Jeez.
So let's go Sixers. Lose those games.
Lose
those games. The Mavs also have their 2025 second-round pick, which currently is 49th, and then they can also trade their 2031 first-round pick. We have no idea what pick that'll be. They also have swap rights for their 2026 pick for what that's worth, and in my opinion, that's very little. And then lastly, by way of expiring contracts, the Mavs have Quentin Grimes. Dwight Powell's $4 million. He has a player option for next year. $4 million is a hair over the minimum, so I would assume he'd probably take it, but he might not, so that could be an expiring deal. And then Dante Exum, who is owed $3.2 million this season. So that is kind of the main nuts and bolts of what the Mavs have to work with, unless they turn around and pull a stunner by trading Clay or PJ or Lively or Luka or Kyrie or something, which I just don't think they're going to do. That would just be totally absurd to me, but it's possible, I guess. Crazier things have happened. It's the NBA. So gentlemen, with the knowledge that they can't take back hardly any more money, and they don't have that many picks,
okay,
and they don't really want to trade any of their top 7 or 8 or 9 guys,
sure.
What do we do?
Well, I guess the question you have to ask yourself is how good you want to be. And the Mavericks had to ask themselves that question when they bought low on Kyrie Irving, and they were able to move on from Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie at the time to acquire a Kyrie Irving. Yes, I know the circumstances were a little bit different in terms of Kyrie's quote-unquote value at the time, but the point is made nonetheless. Daniel Gafford's salary may offer you the best opportunity to improve. Now, how much do you improve? Is that marginal? Is that exponentially? That's the question I think they have to ask themselves based off of what their roster is. Because I think the mindset is, real quick, Tim, is the idea that the best acquisition that they're going to have at the trade deadline is some dude by the name of Luka Doncic coming back into the lineup. So that may be a reason to maybe stand pat.
You've seen how good they are when they're healthy.
Exactly.
Too, so
exactly.
I'm not convinced this team is quite able to be a title contender without better wing defense. And that's, seems to be felt by the front office because all, the most reliable reports, Marc Stein has said that, their focus is on wing defense. I'm also not sure there's a wing defender out there that's gettable who makes them better. I'm really not sure.
That isn't hurt right now.
And that's, I do think in fairness to Mavs fans and fairness to, I know Marc Stein has said repeatedly that New Orleans does not seem interested in trading Herb Jones. He's the only guy who seems relatively available that was going to be on the market or could have been on the market. And so I understand why people really fixated on that. I think that's reasonable. I don't know. And there was maybe a point earlier in the season where Daniel Gafford seemed more tradable in the scheme of Dallas. We didn't think that Dallas was going to be injured all year. And maybe if you had a huge lead, if you were X games over 500 instead of, just a couple, if you were 20 games over right now, and if you were clearly a juggernaut and you were playing just for the playoffs, you could afford a player who has so much regular season value going out the door if you brought back in a player who has so much postseason value. But that's not the case anymore. Dallas has to have, the regular season is going to be extremely crucially important for them until it ends. That's the reality. They can't pretend like this is a team that's just going to coast into the playoffs. They can't pretend that there's not a chance that they're a play-in team. And so I guess I'm at a point where I'm not certain anything they can do. So if you were to trade Daniel Gafford, if you were to do it next summer, you have a lot more paths to go get a backup center for less money. It fits into your team contract. Do you want to be paying $12 and $13 million over the next 2 years for your backup center? Maybe.
When there's all these rules they already have to follow, I would rather not. But what is the alternative?
But it's not until the summer that it's actually realistic that you could send them out and then go get somebody on a cheaper number that does fit that role better, because it is an important role. Nobody's denying that it's important for Dallas to have a really good backup center, nor are we denying the fact that if you traded Daniel Gafford, even if his numbers, you can look at all the plus minus stuff, but that's no guarantee that the plus minuses don't get worse without him out there if you have a worse player in his stead. Like, clearly this team's future, this team's success comes from Dereck Lively on the court. There's a lot of indicators that point to that, but Daniel Gafford is still very important against the worst teams in the NBA. He is someone who absolutely benefits from Luka Doncic, who obviously has not been out there. And I do worry what would happen. I just don't think Dallas is in a position where they can really look at that and make postseason focused moves at the expense of the regular season. That's not how this regular season worked. On the flip side, is this a team that if you decide that it just doesn't really make sense, that there isn't going to be a deal out there that truly affects what is happening right now? They said they're not, Nico Harrison has said he's not going to make, reactionary moves just for the regular season, just to try to make it to the playoffs. So one way that you could do that is through the buyout market. And, this is still an attractive team. This is a team that went to the finals 1 year ago. Theoretically, they could be a team that is, can be competitive on the buyout market, but they can't be without one move. And so I do wonder if there is one small move coming. So here's why. If you're in the first apron and Dallas isn't, you literally just can't sign buyout players who are bought out of more than $12.1 million, which I believe
the league average salary, 12.4.
12.4. But Dallas isn't in the first apron. However, if a player gets bought out, they still have to be signed to a veterans minimum contract. And those veteran minimums for a player in their first year in the NBA, $1.2 million. Dallas couldn't even sign a player who does not even have a year of eligibility or a year of NBA experience, because they don't have $1.2 million free. They just straight up do not. They have 0.5. They have $500,000. To get a player like Bruce Brown, someone who's been floated around as potentially, if he doesn't move, he's just going to get bought out because he's expiring. At that point, he means nothing to the Toronto Raptors, except for what he can do on the court. But it's very, very unlikely they're going to get to the summer and be able to sign and trade him. So Bruce Brown could just get bought out. He's a good player. He was a very important part of the Denver's title run. I don't think that he would close games for Dallas, but and certainly the most useful time to have a player like that would be right now when they have this guard crisis. But theoretically, he's a player that Dallas could look at and say, this player provides more point of attack and more off the dribble, dynamism than, let's say, like, we just like him better in a role next to Luka or Kyrie than Spencer Dinwiddie if we got to that point. Bruce Brown has 7 years of experience. His minimum contract is about $3 million. So if Dallas looks around and says, maybe we'll just shed $2.5 million, and then all of a sudden we have $3 million open in our cap, and we can go sign a player for that amount. And then there's like prorated stuff that comes into this a little bit to an extent. But I do wonder if Dallas, if they are really looking at the scenarios of, we don't see the trade as being a likely place that will upgrade us for the postseason without downgrading us for the regular season. And I think at this point that has to be the priority. Mm-hmm. Then maybe it's the buyout market, and maybe there is some sort of small move around the edges that the team kind of looks at as a potential option. But it's tricky. And the more I think about it, the more I wonder if this team's just going to stand pat, because they've just got themselves in such a delicate situation to be able to both make a move that makes you better, or at least doesn't make you worse in the regular season, while also making you better in the postseason. And more, it feels like the most realistic targets are just dropping out of availability for them to go pursue.
Let's take our next break here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. When we come back, we're going to play a little Mavericks buy or sell based off of what Bobby and Tim had discussed here when it comes to the Mavericks in the trade deadline, and a little bit later on, how do you take your Hopium, or in this case, Copium, when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks? We'll discuss that coming up a little bit later on in the show here on the DLLS Mavs podcast.
Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. Probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. I love my Shady Rays specifically because every once in a while, a pair of sunglasses is known to go missing. And if they ever do, or if they take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. Shady Rays has the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. And if you don't love your shades, just exchange them for a new pair. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com. Use code DLLS for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
It's game time here on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. If you love going to sporting events, concerts, theater, you can get your tickets with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. I use my Game Time app to be able to go and get my tickets for Monday Night Raw last night at the American Airlines Center, and for WrestleMania coming up in April on April 19th and 20th. And Game Time was able to help me get those tickets. They got all-in pricing as well, so I knew exactly what I was going to pay before I checked out as well. They got panoramic seat views, so I knew exactly where I was going to sit before I purchased my tickets as well. So if you want to take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code DLLS for $20 off your first purchase. Remember, terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DLLS for $20 off. Download Game Time today for your last-minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. What time is it?
Game time?
Who? Shout out to Game Time.
Shout out Game Time.
Let's get to our next super chat before we get to our Mavericks buy or sell here on the program today. From C. Manger. That's what I'm going to go with. With the $1.99 super chat, players you would feel good about trading for before. Is that
Trading both first-round picks.
Oh, okay, both okay.
First off, thank you for the super chat. Second,
Thank you for translating.
it would have to be all-star, all-NBA caliber player.
Giannis.
As soon as the Mavs trade their 2031 pick, they can no longer trade any picks until they can't trade another pick until 2 years from now, whenever they would be able to trade their 2033. So if they trade both of their first-round picks at any point between now and essentially draft day, they're done making trades. They can no longer trade any picks at all for a really long time. And the only second rounder that they control right now are in this draft. These two that they have. So if they make those trades, they're done making trades. So I'm not trading any picks unless I'm getting someone that is way better than PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, basically. Last year's acquisitions. Yeah, Giannis.
Pretty much, essentially.
On the flip side, you're going to trade those picks eventually. So
yeah, but I mean, you want to trade a 2031 for Herb Jones? I might not even play for you this year.
That would be a tough sell.
You know,
that'd be tough.
Right. No, I agree. I think
for Kuzma.
I think I'm beginning to think that what is going to make the most sense is packaging them both over the summer.
Yeah,
but
it's always been the move, and you got a lot of expiring contracts over the summer. Trust me. I've been dreaming. I've been scheming. All right.
And obviously, you wouldn't be packaging the pick anymore. You'd be packaging a player.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm beginning to think that is the best case scenario for Dallas, because I do still think that they need a talent upgrade that they don't quite have on the roster. I think this team's really good. I just think.
And you got a window you got to keep open with Luka on this
the
team.
window's now. The window's now. What do you think about Turner or Collins? We found John Collins. I just don't know how much he's moving the needle.
I like John. I'd be down for that.
You said on the show. Yeah,
I do like John Collins. Miles Turner is not realistically available.
Collins is more offensively capable. PJ probably less defensive versatility. Although again, PJ defensively this year has been a little underwhelming in my opinion, especially defending smaller guys. I would love John Collins. He does make a lot of money though.
Yeah. That's why they need a point of attack guy so bad, is that Jones covering the perimeter while PJ really fell back into a backline defender, a guy who would rotate to the rim, a guy who could size up, but not somebody consistently asked to go guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's what Dallas is missing. It's missing the PJ Washington partner, because I think PJ can be a really plus defender when put in the right situation. I just don't think he's been put in this right situation a lot this year, especially when Klaythompson has been his, the player next to him.
Let's run through some Mavericks buy or sell here on the DLLS Mavs podcast based on what we have learned from Bobby Carella when it comes to what the Mavericks do have as far as their trade assets and moving forward here ahead of the trade deadline. Buy or sell, gentlemen. Tim, I'll start with you real quick. My bad. You're about to go get something to drink. Okay. Buy or sell, the Mavericks will, in fact, make a move at the deadline. Buy or sell. They will make a move at the deadline.
I'll still buy it just slightly, but I'm beginning to think that it's going to be something really small around the edges that potentially... I'm beginning to think that buyout is their best option. most realistic option to upgrade the team, and there's ways to make sure that you can do that correctly and appropriately.
I'm all in. I'm putting all of my extra net worth in the Mavs making a trade.
Okay.
Does it move the needle, or does it cause a seismic reaction on the Richter scale? I don't know, but they're definitely going to make a move, 100%.
Well, it almost sounds like you're convinced they're going to make a move, even if you're not positive you're going to be a fan of it.
Yeah, they're just going to make a move. They're going to do something, whether I like it or not. Hopefully, Nico consults me ahead of time, but I doubt it.
Which might be a mistake. You don't necessarily want to make a move for move's sake, but they do need to upgrade and find some kind of point of attack defender. But I think their best case scenario is you might want to hold off because hopefully 77 is on his way back. Buy or sell real quick. Daniel Gafford will, in fact, be a Maverick after the trade deadline is over with Bobby Carella. Buyers. Oh, okay. Tim's buying that immediately. Okay.
I don't want to buy it, but I think the wise investment is to buy that he will be on the team. I think it's a wise, and it's like investing in the S&P. You know, it's like real boring. Your returns are going to be real low, but like you're going to get a return on it. So
it's kind of the safe thing to do.
Yeah, so I'm buying like a Vanguard 500 ETF or something. Like just give me my 2% and I'll just be happy, I guess.
Okay. I don't know what any of that meant, but sounds good.
I barely know either. So.
Okay. I know that's our resident.
Yeah, you want me to tell the people what you invest in, Kat? Okay.
I think out of necessity, Daniel Gafford will be a Maverick because right now we don't know when Dereck Lively II is coming back for this team, and with the ankle sprain that he's dealing with, you might have to keep him for the sake of keeping your big man rotation together at this particular point. So I think Daniel Gafford will remain a Maverick after the trade deadline. Let's focus in on the team as a whole here when we start to look at the standings real quick when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks. Right now, they are sitting in 7th in the West at 23-20. They sit just a game and a half out of what will be the 11th spot in the West because the Golden State Warriors right now are at 21-21. The Mavericks are at 23-20. They are tied in the loss column with the Sacramento Kings, who are in 8th in the West. So they sit a half game above them. They'll welcome in the 9th place team tomorrow on the first night of a back-to-back when they take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So buy or sell, gentlemen. With 6 games left in the month of January, the Mavericks will, in fact, be above 500 by the time we end the month of January. Buy or sell?
Oh, boy.
What's tough is, I think they're going to be above 500 by the All-Star break. Or at worst, a game under. But I think Luka coming back, I do think Luka probably comes back for at least a couple games before the All-Star break.
But this is before the end of January.
I think
by the
end
of
January. I'm buying.
I see what you're saying, though.
I'm buying that they're going to be above 500 before January because I think they're going to go 0-3 in their next 3, and then I think they're going to go 3-0 in their next 3 after that.
That's interesting because I'm looking at that game on the road against Detroit. Earlier in the year, you might have thought, okay, cool.
I think they'll win.
Detroit's a lot better these days than what I think people may realize and what they're doing out there with Cade Cunningham has been really good. Tim Hardaway Jr. helping out there as well. But their last 6 games of the month of January, at home against Minnesota, on the road against OKC, back home against Boston and Washington. Then you've got on the road against the New Orleans Pelicans and the Detroit Pistons to close out.
I'm sorry.
They can go 2-4 in those games and still be above 500.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only way they'd be under 500 is 1-5. Yes, I'm absolutely buying.
Now, when they come home to play Houston on Feb 8, no comment. When they go to the All-Star break, extreme no comment. You will not get me to answer that question on a microphone.
But that's why I posed it the way I did, because when you look at the schedule, you may think, okay, based off of who they have, they should finish above 500 by the time you turn the calendar from January to February. But also, you look at these games, well, we thought that they were going to beat Charlotte. They didn't do that. You should beat Washington, but Washington did also beat Denver at one point.
The homestand going into the All-Star break isn't easy. I mean, it's all every game's at home, but it's Houston, Sacramento, Golden State, Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Those are beatable teams, but it's not. I just think that Luka will probably be back for a game or 2 of those, and that helps boost you and make sure that you get to kind of
got some hopium takes about
the 27 or 20. If you have 28 wins going into the All-Star break, this team's not going to be a play-in team. They're better than that. They will be top 6. If they have 25 or 26 wins, that means winning only 3 or 4 more until the All-Star break comes. That's when the playoffs, the play-in tournaments, and the possibility that they might have to be the 7th, 8th, 9th seed, that's when it becomes, in my head, a little bit more realistic. Obviously, this is assuming a relatively healthy Mavericks after the All-Star break. I will say the post All-Star break schedule, pretty easy. 2 teams that are currently top 10 out of 26 games. Just 2.
Love it. Got to go 24-2 then.
Oh, jeez. That's how we play a little Mavericks buy or sell here on the DLLS Mavs.
Actually,
podcast.
LA is top 10 right
There's a lot more than 2, but
There's two teams that are better than 60%, winning more than 60% of their games, which is the top 7 or 8 of the NBA.
Yeah.
Y'all see vibes are down.
So there's not a
and
lot.
The poll is not good. There's 71% of the votes were that we will be below 500 at the end of
Oh my
February.
gosh.
So
Oh, wow.
we got the next segment, I guess, works out well.
Good. We're going to take some Hopium, some Copium.
Yeah, maybe we can get them.
To boost it up a little bit.
It's time to feel irrationally good. Let's do some drugs. Wait, man,
Whoa.
I can't say that. I can't say that. I
Whoa.
didn't mean that.
We'll take some Hopium or some Copium.
That's what we'll do. Don't do drugs.
Next on the DLLS Mavs podcast.
Hey, whether the vibes are good or bad or horrifying around here, we're still streaming 5 days a week here
That's
on the
right.
DLLS Sports YouTube channel. We're now less than 500 subs away from 14K. We got to 13K last week, and you know what? I can guarantee you
Are we going to be that show
that
again?
we're going to be live whenever we get to 14K because that's just what we do
That's
around
what we
here.
do.
But thank you to everyone that subbed, and thank you all for your super chats again, Daniel. That was just incredible, man. Really, really, really appreciate that. Whether you choose to support us just by watching, commenting, disagreeing, agreeing, supporting, hating, sharing, subbing, liking, or whether you choose to give super chats or whether you choose to become a diehard, which is what we call our people in our community around here. Hey, we really, really appreciate it. If you do want to take your sport one step further and become a diehard yourself, you can scan the QR code below. You can click the link in the description underneath this video. You can go to alldls.com/diehard. For less than $7 a month, you can financially support what we're doing here at DLLS Sports. But it's not just because you're a kind soul. You're getting something back. Okay, you're getting a free shirt when you sign up and a discount on any other shirts or hoodies,
merch.
cups, mugs, flags, merch that you want to buy. You also get to join the DLS Diehard Discord. There's so many cool people on there. It's a great community. You can read all the written stuff on our website, written by folks like Tim or Jeff on Rangers or Sam and Sean on Stars or Joe and Clarence on the Cowboys. You get your physical diehard card, Kevin Gray.
That's right. Physical
And you
diehard
also
card.
get a discount on events. And we do have an event coming up. Last count, there was only 9 tickets left. I don't know if that's still the case. We might have fewer than that. But at last count, we had 9 tickets left for our watch party at Cosm on Feb 6 to watch the Mavs take on the Celtics. Cosm is like a big sports dome. It's like watching a giant game on an IMAX screen.
It's an immersive sports experience.
Yeah, we're going to be going out there. Diehards get 20% off through the website if you sign up while you're logged in. But you don't have to be a diehard to go. If you do want to come hang out with us, it's going to be awesome. I cannot wait to go up there.
Same.
Yeah, definitely make plans to attend if you can. And that's enough house ads for me for today.
AllDLLS.com. Become a diehard member for less than $7 a month. Tag us on social media and let us know you're part of our DLLS Sports family. And join the over 13,500 strong by subscribing to DLLS Sports as well. As we finish up here on the DLLS Mavs podcast, how do you take your Hopium or your Copium in this case? Because we have, look, let's just be honest. The vibe's been a little down as of late because the Mavericks been smoking away a bunch of basketball games. Not necessarily to fault of their own because they got a lot of guys hurt, but at the same time, it's been a little rough for your Dallas Mavericks as of late. With the calendar about to turn to February, hopefully the return of Luka Doncic, maybe Dereck Lively II, Dante Exum. Who knows? We got to turn the vibe around. So let us know in the chat, how do you take your Hopium or your Copium? Do you drink it? Do you, however you take it, how do you take it?
So
Soak it, submerge yourself in it.
Oh, wow.
Submerge yourself in it?
Just to go swimming and so here's a little bit. I'm
Right.
gonna just pour a little bit, throw some back.
Take a shot of it.
Yeah, just a little bit to get the juices flowing here. I think the Mavs beat the Wolves tomorrow night. That's some low grade Hopium, I think. I think a little bit more of a moderate Copium here is that.
Did you say that's cheap Hopium? Is that what you?
No, just a little. Yeah, cheap. Like it's just a
cheap
little
vodka.
bit. Yeah, it's a little $5.
Okay,
you know,
all right,
well,
cool. All right, got it. All right.
This is happy hour around here. right?
Okay.
A little bit more, I think, moderate Copium is that when the Mavs go on this road trip to end the month, at New Orleans, at Detroit, at Cleveland, at Philly, at Boston, the Mavs will have a winning record on that road trip. I'm coping really hard when I say that because, and that's a little hopium, but the cope is Pelicans and Sixers those are games that you should win. And
the refs are going to hand Dallas that at New Orleans game.
75 free throw attempts.
Yeah.
And then I also
they're gonna make up for the other.
I think the Mavs
game?
will beat the Pistons. So
Yeah,
that's my moderate. I have some more intense takes later.
Okay. Oh boy, looking at I already mentioned earlier how I feel about the Detroit game at the end of the month. I think Detroit's a lot better than what people give them credit for. At Cleveland, again, this really depends a lot. The hopium that I'm going to take really depends a lot on what happens when we get to January 31st, February 1st, and we hopefully get the evaluation of where Luka Doncic is. Because if we get a report that says, hey, our guy Luka might still be a couple weeks away, I'm going to be like, I might have to put the hopium down for a while because it's not going to be any to take. But if we get the report that says, hey, Luka's right on track, he's beginning to ramp up, and by the time we get to the All-Star break, we could see, to Tim's point, Luka Doncic in a game or two, I'm going to feel a lot better and take a lot more of that hopium in my Kool-Aid cup that I would be drinking to be able to feel a lot better where the Mavericks are going. So Luka and the report, it's coming in about 10 days, hopefully, is where I'm going to be at when it comes to mine.
I kind of think if the season really starts taking a turn, like there's not much the team can do to stop him from getting back on the court. Maybe if it even is, I don't know. I don't actually, but I think Luka will be on the court sooner than later. I do think that this is somebody who he heals quickly. I mean, this is the most serious injury he's had, but this is not somebody who usually has injuries linger and linger and linger. And
the hopium he'd be the freshest ever at this point in the year by the time we turn the calendar from February into March and hopefully toward playoff. He'll be extremely fresh at that point, hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm bringing out the gas mask for this one.
Oh, okay.
Like Tunsil style?
Damn, not Tunsil style. Oh,
wow. Okay.
I am your father.
Luka's in your starting lineup. Sat Feb 8 versus Houston.
Whoa.
That's my hopium.
Whoa.
Luka plays the last 4 games all at home before the All-Star break, and the Mavs go 3-1 on that homestand.
So versus
go into the
Houston,
break.
Sacramento, Golden State, and Miami. Those are the last 4 games of the break. By the way, that 2 of those games are on a back-to-back. The Wednesday Thursday game you've got against Golden State and Miami. So
yeah, that's a gas mask take.
That's
because that's just pure like pulling it out of. That's just
you can shoot that one in my veins.
You have to be huffing.
If we're gonna get that one, yeah, you can go ahead and pump me up with that.
You have to be huffing to think that to choose the date. You have to be real huffer.
I'm gonna take it a step further. I'm gonna say Luka, Kyrie, and Lively. Actually, the starting 5 we will see for those final 4 games. The original starting 5 with Luka, Kyrie, PJ, Clay, and Lively. We'll see for the final 4 games before the All-Star break. I'll take it even a step further. Oh, that's too much for you?
No. I think this is another cope. This is cope, not hope. The cope for me is that each of the Mavs' 4 toughest games remaining on their schedule and 5 of their 6 toughest games remaining on their schedule in terms of current opponent win percentage all come between now and Feb 8. So that's all in the next 2.5 weeks. To Tim's point, after that, the Mavs will have a below average remaining strength of schedule. Now, granted, those games are offset by a game against Philly, by a game against New Orleans, by a game against the Wizards. So they'll bring, those kind of offset game against Cleveland and Boston, for example. But the Mavs do have a significantly easier strength of schedule after the next 2 weeks, which is just a little bit that's a lot of bit of cope, but that's a little bit of cope because I think the copiest way to do it, just light up the bong right now, the copiest way to do it is to say if you are going to be playing some awful basketball and everyone's going to be hurt, you might as well be playing all the good teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not play any of the bad teams. Yeah, unfortunately, they did yesterday and they lost. But
correct,
we flushed that one.
Yeah,
I've already forgotten about it.
Yeah, the toughest teams. Only
Except
teams
you just talked about it.
Yeah, like I said, the only teams playing better than 600 basketball. Winning 60% of their games are Houston and where are they? New York. You got Houston, New York coming up, or you've got them in the second half in the post All-Star break point of the season. Now, 2 games against Milwaukee over a 5-game stretch, and then back-to-back games against the Clippers in LA. Those aren't easy per se. Those aren't. Those are teams that are top 10-ish teams. Just barely missing the 600 ball cutoff. But yeah, it's an easier schedule.
And one of their other tough games.
Wait. Shout out to Sarah real quick. She says y'all are mixing your drug method metaphors like crazy. Shout out to you.
Well, it's different degrees. It's varying degrees.
Right, exactly. We're going
use.
like here to here. Exactly.
All right.
Sarah, we are high.
Yeah.
We are high on so many drugs right now that it's very tough to get the metaphor, to keep the metaphor straight.
Yeah, I don't even know what year it is.
Yeah.
This is minor grade hopium. This is like a second.
Not minor
this is like
grade.
secondhand hopium. Is that the
Which
Mavs?
could be the worst, actually. Not gonna lie to you.
One of the
but
Mavs'
whatever.
other tough games, according to Tankathon, the rest of the way, is against Memphis. Their game at Memphis is game 82 of the season,
Final game of regular
which
season.
might not even matter for one or the other, or for both. So, like, I don't even know if you can really count that as a tough game, right, guys?
Okay, all right, exactly. Because you're the only one that's laughing on that one. Because my gosh, I'm looking at the schedule. Maybe that might game.
It might matter a lot, but it might not matter at all. Just turn back on Cheech and Chong. I think this isn't
Right, exactly.
This is.
I mean, we got to laugh to keep from crying at this point, Tanner, based on the way things have gone down so far.
This is honest cope. All right.
Oh,
So
this is honest.
I'm actually legitimately like internet sweaty try hard coping right now. I think, or I at least hope, that yesterday's catastrophe is going to be a bit of a wake up call and light a bit of a fire under their behinds.
So this would be the second one of those.
After what?
The Utah one.
Oh, well, I mean, that was effective. Granted, different scenario because their guys were healthy, but like
they ripped off 14-17 after that.
I think that they could play really competitive basketball over the next week and not win a single one of these games. But I do think that they have to be like, are you serious? Like, when thinking about yesterday's game, they have to be like, you've got to be joking right now. Now, do they have the energy and the skill to
The bodies
to, like, actually do it? Yeah, or the bodies or anything? I don't know, but like, there is no way, dude. You go back and watch any 5-minute stretch of the game yesterday, and you're going to see 25 things that are going to make you pull your hair out. Like, it was so gross and bad and just, like, disgusting. I need a bath just thinking about it. I hope.
and Gafford still had 31, 15, and 7 blocks. Like, he's had the game of his damn life yesterday.
Yeah. A lot of other guys had the game of their not lives yesterday.
Correct.
A lot of the guys were huffing too much hopium right before the game. I think is what happened. I hope, and I'm coping by believing that yesterday will be like, yeah, that was beneath us. We're better than that. It's time to actually go out and show it. That said, they could lose each of their next 3 games by 25 points and still look good. But like, I think that yesterday is hopefully going to be like a turn of the page a little bit.
6 players out is brutal.
Yeah.
I think if Quentin Grimes would play in that game, they win. I think they hit a few more threes, and thus I think they win. It's so hard when you are, that really was a math game. If Dallas hadn't lost other winnable games in the lead up to that, games that I think were a much more concerning and much more frustrating, I don't think that game would have stuck out to me or to us or to the fan base in the way that it did, because there were reasons that you could point to. As frustrating as the game was in the fourth quarter, it would have been easier to brush it aside if Dallas hadn't, if the offense hadn't completely, died in the fourth quarter against Denver, if Dallas had beat New Orleans.
Executed better against Sacramento on the road.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, the more I think about the game, it was a culmination of everything that had been going poorly. But there are reasons it happened, and I do think the team will win games against these teams going forward.
That'll do it for us here on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. I really appreciate you joining us here on our show today. We'll be back tomorrow on the first night of a back-to-back for your Dallas Mavericks with our pregame show beginning at 5:45 p.m. here on DLLS Sports as the Mavericks take on Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves at the American Airlines Center with tip-off at 6:30 p.m. Again, our pregame show will begin at 5:45 right here on DLLS Sports, so make sure you tune in for our pregame show tomorrow. That's Bobby Carella. That's our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato. I'm your host, Kevin Gray. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, 5:45 p.m. for the DLLS Mavs pregame show as the Mavericks take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll talk to you then. Y'all be good. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.